I remember it so well. And then they were coming very often, sometimes twice a day. They would come looking for arujia. Arujia means weapons. They were looking for weapons. So they would go from room to room. They would turn everything, upset everything, looking for weapons to all the houses. You see, and so it went on up to February. On February 10, there were 5 soldiers. At 3 o'clock in the morning, they knocked, they banged at our door. And so when my mother opened, there was somebody who was shouting. My mother asked, "Who is there?" And one answered, "Ivan." Ivan was helping us during harvest time. He was a Ukrainian. But he was not there. Somehow they knew that Ivan was with us. And so the moment that my mother opened, they immediately came and they put us against the wall, children and my mother. They looked for the arujia, and then they told the Tsubiraitishe, "Get ready, get ready." So, of course, we began to cry, and my mother cried. Anyway, we had no choice. There was a sledge outside. They came with a sledge. We also had a sledge. So we put our things on the sledges and we were brought to the station. And we were packed into wagons, those cattle wagons, and so many families. There were shelves inside. They put us inside. And people were coming begging for something. A man came along, he died there. Another man inside we were 3 families there in the little room. The man died at night and so on. They just brought his body, brought it outside, dug a hole in the ground and buried it. It's a terrible situation that happened there. So my mother got very, very ill, and so she was brought to a little place, they call it a hospital. But eventually she came out, but she could not do very much anymore. She was very exhausted. And my eldest brother went to there was a talk, there was an army camp, and they were called. My second brother followed him. We didn't know where to go, it was just in that direction. Russia is very big. And then one afternoon, that's where my story comes, one afternoon, my mother said, "Felix, you go. You go, because if you stay here, we shall all die." All of us, we went back to the station, we boarded the train again, and they brought us to Krasnovodsk, which is the port on the Caspian Sea. We boarded that boat that evening by evening, and then at night we sailed. And they said this was the last ship that was allowed to go. How it happened? In the train, by the way, somebody saw me, one of the boys, and he went to my brother and he said that Felix is there. And I didn't know my brother was there, and he didn't know I was there. So my brother looked for me, and then, well, in some way he was older, he took care of me. And so we went from Krasnovodsk, we went to Paklevi, which is the port of Tehran in Persia. And we stayed there for 1 month. I was in the hospital for 1 month because I was completely exhausted. So. And then from there, we went through Iraq, and we stayed in Iraq for about more than a month, resting, recuperating. From there, we went to Palestine. In Palestine, we were a very big group. So many from different places they came. And so we were about 15 or more than 20,000 young men. They gave us uniforms and everything. From then on, we were in the army. But they relocated us to mechanical, technical schools, and I went with a group, about 300 of us. We went to Nazareth, which was our Salesian house in Nazareth, which is an orphanage. The orphans were transferred to Bethlehem. And those of you who were there, you know it. And we occupied that as our headquarters. So we stayed there until I finished my elementary studies. I was in the army. See, and then after that, we transferred to another camp, which was near Gaza, near about 30 kilometers from Gaza, Barbara camp, and we stayed there for my other studies, and we had our full training over there for the army. Those of us who reached the age of 17, they went to fight against the Germans on the Italian front. In fact, 9 of our companions were killed at Monte Cassino. That was one of the decisive battles there. And then there was a war between the Jews and the Arabs, started in 44. So it was already getting hot, and everybody had to evacuate. So they sent us British soldiers and all of us Polish soldiers and all this. We had to evacuate Palestine, and we were transferred to England. So we arrived in England. We stayed in the camp, the eastern part of England. And our chaplain, by the way, who was the chaplain in Nazareth, was a Salesian priest. He was a rector. He was in prison, sent to one of those jails in Russia. He was released to the army. He came, and he became our chaplain. First, he was looking for vocations, and he found quite a number of us somehow. At that time, I did not think much, although, frankly speaking, my brother told me afterwards, the one who just died lately, he told me that in the plan of our family, my family was planning to send me to the seminary to become a priest. Very strange. I didn't know that myself. And there with that Salesian priest, only 3 of us survived at the end. And then, in the meantime, the Franciscans from Jerusalem, there was a Polish Father Borkowski, he came along and he was looking for vocations. And the 2 of us, we volunteered to go and join the Franciscans in Jerusalem. But when we transferred to another camp, there was another chaplain, and I asked him, Father, should I go? The papers were ready, everything was ready to accept us. And the priest said, no, don't go. If God wants you to become a priest, he will find his way. Strange. So we went to England. And our former, the Salesian chaplain, he made arrangements for us with our Salesian aspirant in England at Shirley Park. And they sent us there. And we arrived, I still remember the night we arrived, November 25 in the evening. And from then on, I started preparation. So we stayed there. I finished my studies there, high school studies, and even the other ones. And then I asked to be sent to the novitiate. So I was allowed to go to the novitiate. We were 27 in the novitiate. And then during the novitiate, I applied for the missions. All of us applied for the missions. You see, and they were sent. One was sent to Quito, one was sent to South Africa, one was sent to India, but the Prince Jerry is still in Australia, and so we were scattered around. And I didn't get any obedience. So I was asking the provincial the hall if there is any chance. And he was strange. He was reminding me many times, good missionaries are needed. Sometimes he would give me a stampita when he came to visit us. Be ready, good missionaries are needed. Strange. And so anyway, 1 year passed. I finished my studies in philosophy. I was assistant in the aspirantate at Srila for 1 year. Then at the end, I received a letter from the Director Major, Father Jyoti, and he assigned me to the Hong Kong, China province, Philippines. I did not know what the Philippines were. Nobody knew at that time. Although I was teaching geography during the first year practical training, I didn't know what it was. So I took the atlas, I looked through, I said, oh, there, in the ocean somewhere. So I asked the rector, can I go to London? I will go to see the Philippine embassy. I went there and I got so much material about tourists material, information about the Philippines. I started studying this. You know, when the students, when the boys arrived, I put up an exhibition. We had a symposium, missionary symposium, immediately, about the Philippines.